Welcome, Pradeep Sangha. It's really a
Hey,
pleasure. Hey, it's a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
hey Dan, thanks for having me. I'm doing awesome today.
All right. So today, Pradeep and I are going to talk about profit and growth for entrepreneurs, and just a little bit of background about who Pradeep is just somebody that we were just talking about, shared values and common beliefs, and specifically, I know that Pradeep, that you're helping businessmen specifically, and I want to learn a little bit more about that. So tell us about businessmen and how you've helped them, and tell us a little bit about yourself if you could.
Yeah, sure. So where do I start? I'll give you a little bit of background because it gives you some context. So
Thank you.
I grew up in a typical household of immigrant parents. My parents came here in the early 70s. They immigrated with next to nothing. And I learned how to work hard. Actually, my first job was at 9. And then I started managing employees at the age of 16, which really, you could say, shaped my trajectory in terms of where I am today, because I was always fascinated with, okay, what makes a successful leader in business versus a not so successful leader? And then I kind of grew up, and you could say went into the corporate world and was in the corporate world for about 14 years.
Okay.
I was an executive. I was doing everything I wanted to do at that time. My plan was to be a CEO of a major corporation, but I woke up one day and I was just tired of it. I was literally.
Was this in Canada?
Yeah, this was in Canada.
Okay.
And I had my plan all in front of me, all worked out. I was well on my way to getting there, and then I just said, "This isn't me." I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I was doing stuff on the side, and I literally just walked in and quit. And everybody just like, what the heck happened? What's going on? Right after 14 years of climbing the corporate ladder to walk in and just say, I'm done. And it kind of felt like I was throwing it away at that time.
Yeah.
It actually did. And then
How old were you at the time?
at that time, I was 35, maybe.
And I know
Yeah,
you're
30.
I know that you're a family man. I mean, you've got a wife and children. And I
Yeah.
know that's a real priority to you. Did you have children, and were you a
Yeah.
husband at that time?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was my husband and we had 2 kids at that time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was an interesting conversation. I have to thank my wife. Yeah, she did support it because she
Good.
looked at me. She's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, she
Yeah.
thought I was joking, and then she's
Yeah.
like, "I can see you're actually serious about this." I'm like, "Yep." And then I did it, which it was interesting because to go from a executive salary, I had all the perks.
Yeah.
I had a great life from that standpoint. To go to, okay, now I'm on my own, was a real big change, and it was a challenge at first, you can say, but it kind of led me to where I am today. I'm a business strategist by trade. That's kind of what I did in the past, was really help businesses grow, strategize, solve the problems in a number of different areas. And that's what I wanted to do, because I'm a firm believer that when men especially have a successful business, and this isn't taking anything away from women, it's just the same thing. It's just that I specialize with men, is that if they're successful in the business, they're more likely to be successful at home as a husband, as a father.
Yeah.
And so that's because my dad was in business as well. I saw that. I saw the challenges he had. He was always a great dad, but he also wasn't completely fulfilled. There were certain aspects of his life that were missing. And it just so happens my passion, you can say, outside of business is really neuroscience and psychology, high performance psychology, and as well as spirituality. And I was taking a look when I was coaching entrepreneurs and executives that, hey, look, 80% of the work that I'm doing is not on the business strategies and tactics side. It's really helping them develop. And that was a big eye opener for me.
I'm curious, when you talk about the men, and of course, not discounting women and women's needs in business. I think we've talked about this before, and I want to make sure that, I believe that what I'm thinking is correct, yet it's really about men not being comfortable with vulnerability, not being comfortable with authenticity, not being comfortable with some of the things that women are more natural with. Am I correct in that assumption of thinking that that's what you intend to empower men to be able to say, hey, you can be a successful business owner and a successful dad and husband, and you can actually be vulnerable with who you are? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, very much so. And I call it being the complete man, which
Yeah.
means being complete from within. So I took a look at it. There's a lot of colleagues that do somewhat similar work to I do, but they work a lot with women. There's a lot of entrepreneurial groups for women.
Sure.
There's some for men, but I can tell you a lot of them are not what I call mindful in terms of what they teach. So I saw a big gap in the market. I saw a big need. because there's a mixed message going out there for men in particular as well. And a lot of men are confused. What does it mean to be a man these days? What does it mean to be, am I too masculine? Am I not masculine enough? These are all aspects of being a man, you can say, that men have lost or don't fully understand. So I help them with that. And it's not only the vulnerability, because as men, we typically think, okay, we can do this on by ourselves, right? That's our first thought.
What? We can't? Come on.
Yeah. And it's built in us, right? Whereas
Yes.
women are more collaborative. They're more about social groups. Men are more about, okay, I can do this on my own. It's about social status more than anything. And that becomes a challenge because a lot of guys struggle. They go through their entire life trying to work away and do the same old thing, and they're not getting the results. So there is a better way, and it just requires them, A, to open up to themselves to say, okay, let me see if there's other options, and B, to say, okay, if there's someone else out there that can help me. And that's where we provide a very safe environment. It's a very proactive, it's very results oriented, it's very much driven environment. But in order to get that, you have to be open, right? It can't be about chest bashing, because that's not what it's about. It's about results. Yeah, we'll get there. But it's about, okay, the person needs to transform first before anything else in their life does. Because outside, your external circumstances are a direct reflection of your internal world. And if that internal world is what I call incomplete in some way, you will get incomplete results in your business, in your marriage, as a father, or any other aspect of your life, whether it's your health or vitality. So those are the areas that I work with. So I blend the world of business growth with personal development growth and pretty much high performance optimization as a businessman.
So it's who you're being before focusing on what you're doing, so that you can, create what you want to have. Am I understanding that correctly?
Absolutely, because everything is a reflection of you.
Okay.
Every single thing. And the reason why people, let's just say, don't have what they want or aren't at the level they want in their career or business or even relationship, it's because they're not there. Their skills, their talent, their knowledge, their experience isn't at that level where they need it to be. Because even neuroscience has shown now that your environment responds to your thinking and your thoughts and your emotions, which is very interesting. Now, this is science showing, hey, look, your environment around you, how people react to you, how you shape your life is a reflection of how you are internally.
You mentioned about circumstance. And so when you're looking at the circumstance, let's say with a man or woman, whoever, right? But you're looking at a circumstance that is outside of your control and it's not ideal. So let's suggest that was me, that I'm dealing with a circumstance in that manner. How would you coach me through that?
Well, first of all, is to take a look at the circumstance itself, because there's a circumstance and then it's how you think and feel about the circumstance.
Yeah.
So most of the time, most people take that situation and they basically create a bigger one. They say, let's just say if you hurt your back and you're like, oh, okay, I get this bad back, but now I can't go on vacations. I can't travel. I can't do all these other things. You've just taken that my back is hurt to now my life is screwed up because I can't do all these other things. So it's basically how you perceive things, first of all. So it's helping them see things from a different angle. Ultimately, what it comes down to is a couple of different things. A is how your belief system, right? And you know this from a NLP standpoint is, okay, what you believe is basically how you go throughout your day. So taking a look at what you think that event or circumstance means to you. If you look at it and you say, okay, this is screwing up my life versus, hey, look, what can I learn from this? You will have two different ways of tackling this. And that is fundamentally how you approach situations, is with questions rather than answers. Because anytime we pinpoint something, we've just narrowed it down, because assuming an answer just means that that's the answer. But if you ask a question, it opens your mind up to possibility.
What I hear you say, teaching right now, is basically the self-coaching model, where you're looking at the circumstance, programming leads to the thoughts, leads to the feelings, to the actions, to the results, back into the programming. In that case, is that correct? That's like the beginning of that self-coaching model.
Yeah, very much so, because it all stems from who you believe you are from an identity standpoint. Because if you've created this identity to say, it doesn't matter what my circumstances are, I'm going to get through it, I'm going to learn, I'm going to develop myself, I'm going to grow, that becomes an opportunity for you. You see it as an opportunity rather than something holding you back. So there's the traditional thought of mindset, right? How you perceive something. Because in any given situation, and from my experience, my studies, my experience, and working with many men, is that the actual fact makes up about 10% of the overall belief or story.
Yeah.
Everything else is made up. 90% of it is made up. But that's how the brain works. That's how the mind works. Okay. So long story short, that's how we take a look at it from a high level. Now, with the work that we do, we go in deeper. So we teach men how to look at things differently. We teach men how their minds work, because when you understand that your mind works a specific way, you'll be like, oh, okay, now it's just my crazy brain telling me this. That's not necessarily the way it is.
Yeah. And now you have choice. Now you have power instead of like, this sucks. Now you have power to label it and say, okay, here's what's going on right now. Now I can have choice of what to do about it.
And I think you just nailed it right there, because it ultimately comes down to control and what we call locus of control. If you feel like you are in control of your life or your circumstances, you're going to perform better. You're going to have better thoughts. You're going to have better feelings and emotions. But a lot of guys, or even women, for example, when things don't go right in their circumstances, and you said it at the beginning, it's because they feel like they can't control it.
Yeah.
So in order to feel like you can control something is to have options and to have choices. So when you have options, you can say, okay, here's my other option. It's when you feel like you don't have any options that you feel like you're stuck and that you're not in control. That's a dangerous place to be.
All right. So let's break this down a little bit, because I'm tracking with you 100%. I want to make sure that we can make this just like very, very simple. So something happens as a circumstance that is not ideal. Now, as a human being, we could take a look at that and we can make that mean something, and we can have a thought about it. And so that thought, or really it's going to be a feeling about it first. And then we can choose to say, you know what, I feel as though if I'm in control, or I can feel as though if I'm not in control.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The first thing is take a look and say, okay, how much of this is actual fact?
Yeah.
Like how much of it is actual fact? And then say, okay, based on the fact, how do I feel? And are these feelings based on how I'm actually seeing this right now? Or it could be based on how my past is, my past experiences, or how other people are telling me how to feel, right? And then you ask yourself questions, positive questions, or what I call empowering questions. I don't like to use positive, but empowering questions to say, ask yourself, okay, what does this mean? How can I learn from it? How can I grow? What's something here that I've never come across before that can change my situation for the positive?
Okay.
And then when you ask empowering questions, then you come up with options and choices, and that will give you a greater degree of control.
Got it. Now we're talking situationally here. Something you just said wants me to ask you a question to go, further, right? Like, so let's take you out of that situation.
Sure.
Because what I heard you say was that you probably established this in your childhood.
Oh, a lot of it. Our belief systems are built from, basically, if we take a look at our belief systems, 90% of our belief system has been developed through our adolescent years.
Yeah.
And your brain isn't fully developed by that time. So your belief systems are based more on past experiences and past emotions.
So what do we do about it? Like, let's say that my belief system is not empowering me to be able to achieve what I intend to achieve, or what may be healthy for me or good for others. And it was something that, I had a bad childhood, or maybe perhaps if that's, someone that's listening to the show right now, what do you say to that? I mean, how do you change that?
Well, first of all, it's being aware. Mm-hmm. And so you can actually keep a journal. I tell people to keep a journal when they come across a situation that challenges them, is to write down how they not only think, they feel, but what is their belief at that time. So if you come across a specific situation, let's just say you're in an argument with your wife and she does something that you're not happy with, right?
Well, were you watching me today?
No, that was me. No, I was kidding. But you could take a look at that and say, okay, I believe, let's just say there was over something, and you say, I believe that my wife doesn't care about me.
Yeah.
Right? Now you write that down and you say, okay, what is that based on? And that's based on one situation. Now you could say, okay, now you could even flip it around and say, okay, what are the things that show me that my wife does care about me? Well, she does this stuff. She does all the other stuff. those are moments of clarity, aha moments, when you start to say, oh, this belief could just be based on this one specific thing. It's not entirely true. It's situational, as you said. And so writing it down is important because most of our beliefs are at an unconscious level.
Yeah.
That's just the way we're built, right? And it's because majority of our thoughts, we have anywhere from 10 to about 80,000 thoughts a day. Think about that. That's a lot. And 90% of them are unconscious. So all of these beliefs are at an unconscious level. It's like the stuff underneath the rug. You just have to open it up and say, what's actually underneath there? And there's nothing wrong with that, because you may look at it and say, shoot, I've been thinking this for such a long time. It's not even relevant for me anymore. And I do this all the time when I parenting my kids.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. When my kids ask for something, and they'll ask for like an extra something, like extra candy or something, I'll be like, no. That's my immediate reaction. Okay. And then I'm like, hold on, why am I saying no? Is it because they don't deserve an extra candy? Is it because I don't think that it's healthy? But I realize it's just a natural tendency because my parents used to say that to me.
Got it. And so that was programmed into you when you were probably somewhere in the age of 5 to 9 years old. And that's where you were programmed at that point. And then now it's just coming from your subconscious, and you're replaying that for your children.
Yeah. So it's being consciously aware of those things. And when you're consciously aware and you identify those, you can actually say, okay, is this still relevant? So it's just like any other software system, it needs to be updated. So Is this still relevant to me in this current time right now? Is it empowering me?
Yeah. And that's something that, if you're, again, listener, watching this right now, and you are a parent, have that awareness to say that your child, and it depends on what the ages are, which if they're a younger child, then, that's when they're going through their programming stage. And just be aware of that, because you never know what action or what situation that's going to occur that's going to make an impact into their development. And then as they get a little bit older, then they start modeling, they start watching you and observing you and saying, okay, well, what's dad doing? What's going on here? And that's how they start developing. And then when they get into their early teenage, then they start socialization. That's when their friends have more of an impact on who they're going to be than themselves. Now, I'm fortunate. My daughter's 10 years old right now. So I'm preparing for that socialization phase, which she's starting to go into. I think that kids go into earlier than when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And the best thing as a parent that I can control is who she's surrounding herself with now and what situations am I putting her into. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, listen, honey, this girl may not have a great influence on her. So, and this girl may. So maybe we could do more play dates with, the second girl rather than the first girl, because in a few years we won't have the opportunity to be able to impact that. So I just sort of, sharing some thoughts here. What are your thoughts on what I'm sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true, because even at a younger age, kids are learning from us. They're modeling our behavior, and that's unconscious for them. So because they're exploring the world. And it's important to know that as parents, every single thing you do and say, they pick up on. They do unconsciously. That's what they do. That's what their cells in the brain. We have mirror neurons in our brain, basically, which means that their brain is consciously looking for stuff for them to replicate. And they are doing it consciously and unconsciously. So we have to be very careful. Like as much as you can't just walk around on pins and needles as a parent either.
Of course.
But because you have to instill some values in them, and you may believe that, okay, maybe your values might be out of date, traditional, whatever that looks like, but they still have to grow up with some values. But the important thing to know is not to pinpoint them. Giving them a diverse set of beliefs is important. Not just your own beliefs, but beliefs from other people, and then let them determine as they get older which ones are serving them.
So we're a little bit off topic right now, but I'm just enjoying the conversation so much, right? Because I'm loving hearing your thoughts on this. But let's bring this back to business. Let's bring this back to profitability and growth. So having this knowledge of some of the things that you and I are discussing right now, how do we then apply that to our business growth and our profitability, our bottom line?
Wow. Yeah. Well, taking a look and saying, okay, if I want to be profitable, if I want to grow my business, the first thing is you got to have that clear vision. And let me just back up before that.
Sure.
It ultimately is up to you. as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, if you're saying my business is not growing, you cannot blame the environment. You cannot blame your employees. You cannot blame anybody else except for yourself. You have to take accountability. And here's why. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. If an employee is not performing, it's up to you to either train them, coach them, or let them go at the end of the day. In this environment, for example, there's a lot of people that have lost their businesses. I've worked with many over this last 12 months in terms of people, or not 12 months, 9 months, that have had to close their businesses down completely and restart new ones. And there's businesses that have pivoted and done extremely well in this environment. So there's businesses out there that have rocked it, have actually, just outpaced their competition in this nasty environment of COVID. But it's all based on them as individuals. And they were able to see things differently. They raised their skill level and they said, okay, if I have to reestablish my business from scratch, then I'll have to do that. But it was ultimately up to them to be able to change. So that's the first thing to know, is that if you want to grow your business, grow yourself first.
And take responsibility and say, it is on me, not the circumstance.
Exactly. And if you take a look at what business fundamentally is, if we broke it down right into the fundamental basic building blocks of business, is regardless of what industry you're in, it comes down to creating a client or a customer and keeping that client or customer and actually turning them into what I call a super fan. That's all business is. If you can learn to do those two things, you will be successful in any business. So that is the fundamental piece. So now it comes down to, okay, how do you do that? The marketing aspect, or is it the sales aspect? But what it really, there's an important fact to take a look there is, ultimately, you want a system that brings you in new customers, and you want a system that enables you to keep your existing customers. And if you want to grow your profits, you do it in 4 particular ways. A, you get more clients or customers. B, you increase your prices, or you get them to pay more in some way, shape, or form. And B, or C, you get them to buy more of your products and services. And then ultimately, if you want to grow your revenues, this is the last one, which is more of an expense. It's reducing your expenses. Sure. So if you focus on those 4 areas of your business, you'll continually grow. You'll continue to expand. Now with business, what ends up happening is that we get so sidetracked with everything, the day-to-day stuff, the operations stuff that's not going well. The whirlwind that we forget as a business owner to focus on those things. And here's my fundamental rule for business. You have to take a look at your activities that you do as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. You should be doing activities that progresses your business, meaning that it improves the value of your business and competitive advantage. Those are the things that you need to be doing, whether that's networking, creating strategic partnerships, whatever it is. Everything else is a maintenance activity. And if you're doing more of the maintenance, which many business owners are, then you're taking away from the growth aspect. That's how you should be focusing your activities.
And then, so you're focusing on the things is what is going to grow the business. What are going to be the things in those 4 things that you just shared with us, and everything else? How can I leverage that out, or perhaps not even do it? So most of it does have to be done, yet that doesn't mean that you as the owner or the entrepreneur has to be the one that's doing it.
Yes. And it's a checklist. Is it bringing me new customers? Is it enabling me to increase my prices? And is it getting my existing customers to buy more? And is it reducing my costs? If it doesn't check any one of these, you got to think twice and say, okay, why am I doing this? Let's outsource, whatever it is, because there's a regulatory component too for a lot of businesses, right? We have to take that into consideration. That's kind of like the 5th bucket. But anything outside of that, you just say, okay, I got to get rid of it. I got to put it off to somebody else, or we got to reestablish or rethink our business to say, why are we doing it in the first place?
Got it. Now, Pradeep, you're an author. You've written a few books.
Yes. Yep.
And tell me about the latest one you've written.
Yeah, the newest one is called The Complete Man, and that's specifically for men, and that's going to be launched here next month, December 1st. And that is specifically around the subtitle you can say is Achieve Ultimate Performance, Fulfillment, and Victory in Every Area of Your Life. So it is a very holistic, I call it a handbook for businessmen. It is, you can say A to Z. How do you perform better? How do you achieve? How do you be better in your relationship? How do you be better as a father? All of these things that guys think about in their minds, whether it's addictions or fear or these beliefs that we have, all of these things are kind of built into this book.
Got it.
You still with me?
Yeah, there you are. And so all these things are built into this book.
Yep.
And tell me more about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a guy out there, you want more out of life. You want to either increase your performance, your productivity, your impact, your influence, your communication skills. Ultimately, it's for guys that want to perform better and want to achieve more. But there's a third level, which is feeling fulfilled with your life. And the reason why I say that is I work with a lot of guys that are very successful, but a lot of guys that are not happy with their life, that are not fulfilled. And so what's the point of going through your life being a certain way and not being fulfilled? And I'll share why I focus so much on this is because when you're fulfilled, you perform better and you achieve more. It's a cycle. So it's being in the zone. So if you have more pleasure in your life, you will perform better and you will achieve more.
And it's just more fun.
Exactly. What ends up happening is a lot of people stop at achievement and they forget about the fulfillment piece. And then it goes back into that same performance achievement, but they're still not getting at that level where they want. And I've seen this happen with many men. My father, for example, was a business owner, and he never struggled with money. He traveled, he did all that kind of stuff. He had the freedom, but he was never really fulfilled with his life. And his milestone, and we have this as men, is to say, okay, when I hit that certain milestone, whether it's business size or my kids go off to school or I marry off my kids or I'm retired and I can go golfing, we have a milestone to say, okay, that's when I'm going to be fulfilled.
Are you fulfilled?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because everything I do is based on who I am, not necessarily what I have. And when you do it based on who you are, you're always fulfilled.
I wanted to ask you that question because I already knew the answer to it. And I wanted to demonstrate to those that are listening, watch how, that was subconscious right there. There was not a pause in Pradeep's answer to that, which is validity on what he's teaching to be true, right? Because you just demonstrated that in just the way that you answered that question. So I just wanted to make sure that I pulled that out for those that are listening and watching right now.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And I had to grow up certain aspects. Like I have a lot of my grandfather, my great grandfather was a spiritual teacher for 50 years. So my grandfather taught me a lot of these things about fulfillment, a lot of spiritual teachings. I went back to India a number of years ago and I saw the struggles there. And I always said, what, my life is fulfilled.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can complain about. When I saw, for example, a young child, probably 8 or 9 years old, I couldn't tell if it was a boy or girl, but crawling on their torso with no legs and arms.
Oof. And
on dirt, on gravel. And I said to myself, wow, this, I will never complain about life ever again. Like I cannot complain. I have everything I need in life and more. And so that has enabled me to live a fulfilled life and be that way. And so again, going back to why I do this is because my dad had that milestone of saying 65 and he was going to continue to work, but work less. And we were planning family trips with my brother's family and my family and my parents. And that was the opportunity for us to say, okay, my dad's going to take his foot off the gas and we're going to do this kind of stuff after he retires. But he died at 64 and a half from a sudden heart attack. And the circumstances, everything kind of led to that, and everything happens for a reason, I believe. But it was a big eye opener for me, my family, for everybody around us in our family to say, wow, like my dad was that guy, that man, you can say, that everybody just kind of looked at and said, okay, if you want to be a man, that's kind of like the guy you want to be. He struggled with alcoholism as well, though, as we talked about before on my show. But it taught me a big lesson. And I see so many guys living that way. And
this was just a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah. And they don't need to. And that was kind of a sign for me when he passed, for him to say, son, there's a lot more other guys out there that need the help. Keep going. Because even at that time, when people hear the work that I do, I have the podcast, The Male Entrepreneur, for example, the Complete Man, I have Complete Man shirts and stuff like that made. People think of it as a sexist, chauvinist kind of thing. And a lot of women, even men, perk up their ears and say, what are you doing? And at that time, I was facing a lot of backlash. Like there's a lot of people that were saying this is totally like sexist. And there's a toxic masculinity movement. But that got me through because it was like my dad saying, keep going. Because a lot of people misunderstand what it means to be masculine. A lot of people understand what manhood means. And so that's basically my mission in a nutshell.
You know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking that, you know, you're working with half the population, and for the human, you know, society to work, for our race, for who we are, it takes both components of the population. And if half the population is not healthy, then what's that? You know, how's that help the other half of the population? So regardless of if you're, you know, I was listening to a podcast about women's empowerment just the other day, and I'm thinking that that's fantastic because it's, you know, we all have unique needs and unique goals and unique things that make us who we are. And so I think it's completely, you know, appealing that you're focusing on, you know, the half the population that you understand the most.
Yeah, and I think we've gotten to a point now from a brand perspective that we get just as many referrals from women now.
Sure.
And please help. And I think
Please
that
get my husband.
Yeah, or my business partner. I'd like to see this world turn around and really move on the positive, because we as entrepreneurs understand, right? There's no way, regardless if you're a man or a woman, if something's not going right in your family, whether it's your marriage or with your kids, it impacts your business. Yeah. Fundamentally, that's it. So you cannot. There is no clear distinction. There is no way I'm going to keep my personal life separate because it impacts you unconsciously. And so that's why we take a holistic approach, whereas a lot of the other business coaches I was seeing were focusing on the strategy and tactics, but the guys were not executing very well. They were not getting the job done. They didn't keep the motivation level that they needed to. And it's because as a business strategist, it's hard to help guys, if you don't have any background on the personal development side, to help them get past those challenges. And we all have those. And for, I think the message is, you know, if you're struggling at home, if there's something not going right, you're okay, because, you know, 8 out of 10 guys that I speak to tell me, and in all honesty, with the work that I've done, that 8 out of 10 guys tell me that they're not happy with their relationship. They're not happy with the person that they're with, or they wish that they would have thought differently before getting into the marriage, or something is not going right with their children. They're not present enough with their kids, or they're not able to spend enough time. So our personal lives matter ultimately.
Yeah, they sure do. Pradeep, if I'm a man and I'm looking to be a complete man, I'm interested in your book. How can I get on like a pre-mailing list or a pre-launch list? How can I do that?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the timing. So
when you're listening to this.
Yeah, when you're listening to this, if you're going to listen to this, so Dan, when is the show going to be? Well, this is live. If you're listening to it live, you can go to text the word free. So FREE to 888-210-5566. That's 888-210-5566. You can get on a list to get a free digital copy. And then once the book is live, you will be able to get a copy from CompleteManBook.com.
Got it.
Yeah. But for now, before December, because the official launch is December 1st, you can get a free copy just by texting that number.
And that's December 1st, 2020. So if it's after that, go to the website.
Yeah.
Pradeep, thank you so much for joining me today. And how else can people get in touch with you real quick?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on social media channels. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, not so much on Facebook anymore, but Instagram and LinkedIn are the two main ones. You can go to my website. Feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome, man. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.